Kenneth Adolf Slessor's poem William Street was written in the 1930s in Australia, which at the time was going through the Great Depression. In the aftermath of the First World War and the early stages of World War II, there was an economic crash, pushing the common civilian into poverty. This collective experience of national destitution was one of the main focuses of Slessor's William Street. A large portion of this poem uses the strength and perseverance of the poverty-stricken populace to subvert the romantic ideals of beauty and challenge the judgment and apathy directed towards the poor. The opening line of the poem reads, "The red globes of light, the liquor green." The colour symbolism of red conveys passion and violence, reflective of the violent and passionate nature of William Street as Sydney's red light district. There is more colour symbolism in the green of the liquor, as green is symbolic of nature. The use of natural imagery to describe the alcohol subverts the romantic ideal of naturalism to reflect the escapism present in the actions of the subjects. Green also implies that this liquor is absinthe, the green fairy, which was at the time associated with alcoholism and degeneracy in general, which furthers the passionate and violent image. It was also said to have hallucinogenic and psychoactive properties, which adds to this overarching idea of escapism. The dichotomy of the urban scene and the image of nature, also depicted in the line, "Split on stones go deeper than a stream," is not only a contortion of the romantic ideals in the dominant discourse, but also a revelation of the cognitive dissonance of the subjects. It's their blatant escapism in the face of their situation. This is lyrically supported as the sibilance indicates change, but the voice alveolar plosive, yes, I had to Google what that was, implies stagnation. The subjects are only wishing for change. This is escapism, not reality. Remember that word, escapism. We'll put a pin in it for now. The first line of the second stanza reads, "Ghosts' trousers like the dangle of hung men." The dark imagery and the allusions to death produce an anguished tone. This adds weight to the desperation presented within the depiction of poverty. Ghost trousers as a metaphor for the clothing sold in a pawn shop further strengthens the connection between desperation and poverty, as, in historical context, selling or renting out clothing was generally only done by the truly impoverished. The allusion to capital punishment also reinforces this correlation between poverty and suffering. This is continued in the line, "But none inside to suffer or condemn." Again, the reference to judgment and punishment directly discusses and indirectly challenges the customary reaction to poverty. Vivid and violent imagery, suffer, condemn, darkens the tone and puts the reader on the defensive, as the unidealic are described sympathetically. The imagery also explores the suffering inherent within poverty, as the conjunction "but" implies that it is abnormal that there is none inside to suffer. This line describes the absence of suffering. Remember that pin we put in escapism? The absence of a physical person to suffer could be interpreted as a metaphor for the internalization and cognitive dissonance associated with aspects of escapism, the mental absence of a person in a distressing situation, so to speak. This absence means they can't suffer. This denotes the quality of perseverance, especially in those who are suffering, the ability to survive despite the circumstances they are subjected to, and even to find strategies to cope with seemingly unbearable situations. While other qualities, such as creativity and mental fortitude, are still present within the text, they are secondary to this overarching idea of perseverance. In the repeated line, "You find this ugly, I find it lovely," the dichotomy created by the juxtaposition of the first and second person directly challenges the romantic ideals of beauty, as the "you" is referring to the ideals present within the historical context, and that context was romantic. This dichotomy uses the positive quality of perseverance exposed by the suffering of the subject to assert the value of that suffering. The pervasive disgust ever present within the depiction of the poorer urban areas due to the necessity of culturally inappropriate behaviour to survive and or cope is challenged by the depiction of its inherent perseverance, a quality seen as moral and respectable. The duality of the negative perception of poverty and the quality of character required to exist in poverty is used by Slessor to question the original perception that the poverty-stricken subject is morally corrupt. The depiction of persistence subverts the romantic ideals, as it is the unidealic that is characterized as persistent.